Assalamu alaikum. Okay, good, so you're talking to me. So when I first went after the woman that's my wife now, and this was a few years ago, it doesn't matter how cool you think you are, it's always an anxious period, right? You've got to get it right. And it's always a little bit harder because the person that you're going after is so much better than you in most things and in most ways. And you know what it's like? You can't actually go after them and hit them around the head and drag them away again because it's frowned upon these days, right? So I was anxious and I asked around and I spoke to friends and I sought guidance. And there's a particular friend up north and she's from Manchester, but other than that, she's a wonderful person. She said, but as long as she doesn't find out what you really like, you'll be fine. Yeah? And so I thought, okay, fair enough. So my campaign was based on keeping her off track, keeping her off balance, don't let her think about things too quickly, get the families involved, manzoora, kabula, get it all done. And it worked because, sort of 4 years later, she's at home tonight. We have a two and a half month old baby. And she's sitting there wondering, what just happened? And I thought, well, maybe I need to bring that same principle here tonight. Long as you don't know what I'm really like. And the reason for that is because, Nabil asked me, and I've got to be honest, I was like, well, I'm not sure where he's coming from. There's some amazing people in this room, and there's some wonderful people here. And I can see why he's inviting them, and I don't see why he's inviting me because, and I had to think about that for a long time. And I got it. They're here to inspire you. I'm here as a warning. Learn from them or you'll end up like me. Then, truthfully, we all have a self-image, right? We all believe some things about ourselves. And those are different to what other people believe about you. And probably what you're really like is somewhere in the middle. And there's loads of grades in between. And it depends on when you meet somebody and at what stage of their life and your life that you connect. Right? Yes or no? So, my self-image is basically that I'm painfully shy. So smile at me, please. Yeah? And I'm a little bit of a coward. I know this because I don't like to put myself in situations where I don't know people, and I don't like to be in situations where it's a social crowd. And most of my life, that's been a battle between fearing that and doing the thing that needs to be done. And, I try to avoid these sort of situations as much as possible. I was listening to Sarah Joseph a couple of weeks ago in Bristol. And, Sarah Joseph is there doing her thing, and you're in awe. And all I kept thinking is, man, I have to follow her after this. And, it's no fun knowing you've got to follow Sarah Joseph because I don't want to listen to me after Sarah Joseph, so why would anybody else? And at one point in the conversation, she said, she's an introvert. She said, I'm not really comfortable around crowds. And I wanted to rush up to her and say, Sarah, I'm exactly the same. I hate it. I do everything that I can to avoid crowds. I have this habit, sometimes for no reason whatsoever, I'll go red, I'll sweat profusely. It's not an attractive quality, and it happens all the time. And I wanted to go up to her and say that was one of the reasons why I got into reading so much. And I've read thousands of books. I've probably read more books than most of you put together. That's how nervous I am in life. Yeah? But the thing is, I wanted to go up to her and tell her all of this, but of course I didn't because I was too shy. So anyway, when Nabil asked me, I feel honored because, we go back a long time. I think I gave him his first job back in 2000 up in Manchester. And in return, what Nabil did was that he helped me to reconnect with my faith. Not anything overt, just in the way that he carried himself. And Nabil, he has this way of assuming goodness in you, right? And after a while, you start to feel bad if you don't respond in kind. And that's another reason why I think that it's good to hang around people better than us, because they make you become better despite yourself sometimes. And I think that I found that with Nabil, so Jazakallah khairan for that, bro. Thank you. So anyway, when he asked me, I thought, well, I've got to do it. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say. So what I'll do is I'll give you the quick version of the background. Oh, and by the way, one of the things about finding somebody better than you And if you haven't already, please do that. Please find somebody better than you to marry. Because two things. One is that you'll either work hard to achieve their standards, and in that process you become a better person, and in the worst case, they're just better at running your life for you, and either way you win, right? And it's the same with our friends, and it's the same with the people that we hang around. Hang around with people that we look up to, because just by being around them, generally we're more likely to become better people. And actually, it's only the weak people that keep people around them that they look down on. Am I right? Yes or no? So anyway, so he asked me, so I had to think about what to say. So I'll do the quick background. I went to school in Hackney and East Ham. And, we got into a lot of fights. Actually, that's not true. I got beaten up a lot. And that's not quite the same thing. And it got to a point where I was very used to getting beaten up all of the time, because that's just how it was at the time. And it was no big deal. You got used to it. In fact, before a fight, I used to yawn. And it was just a nervous habit. It wasn't because I was really cool about it. But after a while, people used to assume that this guy must be really, really cool, so maybe we'll leave him alone. And after some time, people started to leave me alone. And at 16, I scammed my way into a job at NatWest Bank. I don't know how I did it. I think, actually, at the time, there was some sort of drive to take on more ethnic minorities. God bless this country. Anyway, so you imagine from where I was coming from, that's a big achievement, My parents like, Sada beta bank mein kaam karta, You get the gist even if you don't understand. They were really pleased. And I did that for 2 years, and I thought, I'm not spending the rest of my life doing this. Not going to happen. So anyway, one of the things about growing up as I did back then is that there weren't a lot of role models. Nowadays, you can look around everywhere and there's some wonderful people that are there to teach you all sorts of amazing things. And we didn't really have that. Our parents weren't really able to equip us to deal with things in an alien land. So what they would do is take you away and get you married off quick, or apply lots of emotional blackmail, because that's just how it was at the time, right? And, all that generally happened is it worked for a while and then it backfired horribly. So anyway, 2 years in, at 18, I decided, no, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. And I left and I said, I'm going to go find something else to do. And at the time, I was married and I had a baby, and I had another baby coming along. And I was too stupid to realize that, what I really needed was a bit of stability for the family rather than satisfy this craving for adventure. But there you go. And one of the things that we did with a bunch of friends is go off and start a personal development membership club. And this is why, really, I got excited about Murabbi. It's back at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, Tony Robbins and Stephen Covey and Brian Tracy and Deepak Chowdhury and all of these people were out and about talking about mind mapping and speed reading and NLP and all of this stuff. And you know what? It was the most exciting time of my life. We would be in front of people, hundreds of people and thousands of people most nights, talking about some of the most incredible stuff. Mind mapping and speed reading and board breaking and firewalking, and some of this stuff was spiritually, it was suspect, to say the least. But it was exciting at the time, and the only thing about it is that if you're not grounded spiritually in your faith, it's very easy to get off track very easily. And I found myself in a situation where I became very good at influencing individuals and groups of people. And there I go again. I don't mean influencing, I mean manipulating. Because you know what? There's always a good reason to make people see your point of view, because it's your point of view and you're always right, yeah? And the problem with that is it's very easy to turn into a little monster. But alhamdulillah, for some reason Allah took mercy and smashed it all away, and I spent the next 2 years paying back hundreds of thousands of pounds and learning a little humility, and I'm grateful for that. And so anyway, one of the things that I learned about personal development is that, as a technique, as some of the stuff, some of the information that you learn is just amazing, because you can find people, it can empower anybody to go and do whatever they want to do in their life. And we know that most people, we live small lives because we're afraid of the fear of failure. There sometimes we fear the pain, we fear the emotional or physical pain, and we don't do things. And personal development, it would make you go out and take risks and go and grab what you wanted to with your life. And I found that was amazing. It's also true, I believe, that without spiritual, and I mean Islamic grounding, and which is what Murabbi bring to this, it's potentially quite dangerous, and people get carried away with themselves. And I think that really, for Muslims, Murabbi is really the next evolution. I think it's the next thing for us in this country over the next few years, and that's why I'm really excited about this. So anyway, so moving on from that, I spent 2 or 3 years after paying back that money, and then I spent the next few years after that setting up lots of charities and social enterprises, working with women, working with young people in this country, abroad, and generally being around some fantastic people. And I learned some things there. And one of the things that I learned is that the best people really didn't try to build personal platforms. They always made what they did about what they do rather than about themselves. And you know, we've all seen this. You see some amazing people set up some fantastic initiatives, some fantastic organizations, and you know, there's some nobility in that. And over time, you found that it became more and more about them, and it became less and less noble. And it's a very much a South Asian thing, and sometimes it's an Arab thing, and I don't know whether it's an Islamic mindset, but you know, eventually you found people that you really looked up to, and they were really nice to you if they were around other people and they were on public display, and or if they thought that you were had something to offer them. And away from that, they'd shut you out. And you know, one of the things that I learned is, don't build personal platforms. Do the work, because the work is important, and you know, God will send the people that you need to do the work. That happens. Networking for the sake of it, I've always found to be a useless exercise. People do it, but if the work isn't valid enough, then probably you're wasting your time, and you need to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. If there isn't a spiritual dimension in what you're doing, then probably you want to do something else. I found that. And you know, even every sector you look at, you might look at charities and you see people start some of the most amazing things that are helping millions of people around the world, and at some point they've decided to hold on to it because, I don't know if it's fear of change, I don't know if they're afraid of doing something else, and instead of stepping away, suddenly it becomes about them. And sometimes that's a fear about what are we going to do next. And that in itself is it's a negation of our faith, because what we're going to do next is not our problem. You know, we look to Allah for that, and Allah opens the doors, and that's not an opinion. We know this to be a fact, right? And so sometimes we see that and we think, well, you know what? We don't want to do that. So when the time comes to move on, move on. And I learned that. And people used to say that to me at MWA, you know, you're not shouting loud enough about stuff that you're doing here. You're not using this as a platform. You're not getting out there, getting doors opening for yourself. And I said, well, why? We've managed to get thousands and thousands of people in front of literacy programs and creative writing programs, and we changed the landscape a little bit in the right direction, and alhamdulillah, we're grateful for that. So anyway, so what have we learned? What have I learned? Not much, to be honest. Most of what I learned has been the hard way, hard experience. You know, wisdom has come late to me. Some people tend to pick up stuff by watching other people. Me, I've had to learn the mistakes the hard way, and gradually I make them quite a few times before I realize I should try to do something else. But there's a few things. First of all, don't worry about people letting you down. Don't worry about people upsetting you. It's going to happen. And let's be real. We always let down people ourselves, and we're very good at editing that part out of our life story, right? We do it. We always do it. And the problem with not letting go is easy, actually. That's an Islamic obligation, because we leave it to Allah, and Allah instead gives us something much better. But not letting go is potentially devastating. Physically, it's devastating. Emotionally, spiritually, it's devastating. You end up in a situation where, you know, you see it. People become bitter and small and twisted, and all the joy comes out of their life, and that's very easily done. And that's one of the things that you've got to avoid, and you've got to let it go. And the other thing is, don't look for the insult in everything. You invite somebody to go be part of something, you invite somebody to come and join you in something, and they turn you down, you know, it's not a personal slight. Move on. You've got to do that. And sometimes we know people that spend so much time and so much energy trying to get even somehow. And again, that's something that we got to avoid as Muslims, because it's bad for your soul, man. It's bad for your soul. Anyway, there's a couple of other things. You know, I mean, one of the things people say, I heard somewhere, you know, life is a box of chocolates. We heard that, right? Hamza Yusuf puts it a lot better. You know, he says life is like a visit to the dentist. He goes, it's going to hurt, but just for a little while. Yeah? It's going to hurt, but just a little while. And you know, sometimes even when there's pain in life and it goes on for years and years and years and you start to run out of patience, and enduring is different to having patience, but you know, you get to a point where you start to get tired of it all. You've got to remember that when you compare this to infinity, that's what we're talking about, infinity, then it's just a small amount of time. Yeah? Another way to look at it. See, when you take a baby and you throw a baby up in the air, don't throw a baby up in the air like that. Yeah, but you throw a baby up, and a baby's laughing at you. Yeah, baby's laughing with you, and you throw him up. And as you let him go, the laughter goes to, there's a little panic. Yeah, that little moment of panic. And then you catch the baby again, and the baby starts laughing. That little moment of panic, that's our life. Yeah? And the thing is, we've got to relax, because we're in good hands. Allah's going to catch us. So anyway, I probably overran. Jazakallah for listening. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.